I'm going to choose to continue instead of leave. So I'd like to call the committee meeting to order. As permitted by the governor's disaster declaration of September 16th, 2022, the determination has been made that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent for this committee to meet in person. To ensure a transparent and open meeting as possible, we will post the meeting materials approximately 1 week in advance. Thank you to the staff for doing that. And we'll provide a recording of this meeting linked on our website, and we'll take all votes by roll call. Moving on to virtual meeting announcements. Staff has some additional virtual meeting logistic announcements before we take the roll, but I again would just really like to thank Dominic and Austin for pulling all of this stuff together in the staff. They work so incredibly hard to make this a very smooth process. So I'm going to turn it over to staff now for additional announcements.
Certainly. So the meeting is being recorded. Please use the mute function when not speaking. This will help eliminate any excessive background noise. We're all pretty familiar with Zoom now, but if you need a refresher, you can use the mute button, or those on the phone can press *9 to mute and unmute themselves. For members of the public, if you have a question during the meeting, please use the chat box, which staff will be monitoring. Additionally, if you wish to address the committee during the public comment agenda item, you can indicate that your desire to do so also via the chat box. To members of the committee, when making a motion, if you could please include your name so staff can properly record it. I think that's all of the announcements we have at the moment.
Great. Thank you, Austin. Then let's jump right into the roll call. If staff could now please call the roll.
Sure. Okay, if committee members could please unmute themselves at this time. I'll run through the list quickly. Bob Tucker.
I am here.
Great. Let's see if I can do this. Here we go. Yes. Okay. Work. Kim Porter. I saw her from earlier. Adam Ballard. Dion Bowe. Peter Creticos.
Here.
Great. Christy De Laurentiis. Joan Fox. Kendra Freeman. Been crowd today. John Furr.
Here.
Thank you. Veronica Gonzalez. Kevin Kramer. Marissa Lewis. Tiffany McDowell. Shannon McGee.
Here.
Shannon. Michael Myers. Josh Potter.
Here.
Thank you. Obai Reed.
Here.
Thank you. Caitlin Ritter. Darnell Shields. Jennifer Tamman. Michael Horsting. And Tara Orban.
Here.
Okay. Unfortunately, we do not have a quorum. Did I miss anybody who joined?
Two people joined us while we were doing that. Committee member Bo and De Laurentiis.
Dion Bowe here.
Hi, Dion. How are you?
Hey,
and
Austin. How are you?
Christy. Okay, still not quite a quorum. Did anyone else join while I was playing out the role?
Christy De Laurentiis from SSMMA.
Welcome, Christy.
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
We are still shy as Adam Ballard, Joan Fox, Kendra Freeman, Kevin Kramer, Marissa Lewis, Tiffany McDowell, or Caitlin Ritter, Darnell Shields, Jennifer Tamman, or Michael Horsting joined.
Can we possibly send them a reminder email with the link while we move on with our business?
I think they just received one a few minutes ago.
Okay, great.
Unfortunately,
if we don't have a quorum, we won't be able to move forward with other business. So
And any business, not even.
any business. So why don't we give it like 2 more minutes? And if not, well, let me confer with my team as to how long we should wait. So I don't want to make good use of everyone's time here.
Of course.
That makes sense, Aaron. Austin, this may be further evidence as to why we shouldn't probably schedule on 9 o'clock on Monday morning.
I imagine that most people are out trying to take advantage of the weather before the winter sets in.
That too.
Like crisp fall day, there are worse ways to.
I mean, our next meeting, there'll be snow on the ground, right? I'm sorry, did I say that?
Oh no, let's not wish it. Even in December, we might be able to make it to January if we're lucky.
Fair, fair.
Austin, how short are we? I know I shouldn't be asking that.
No, it's a good question though.
We need one more person.
Oh.
And Lewis was a no?
Correct. Marissa Lewis is not here today.
I only mentioned that because she had said that she would provide an update in other business, I believe. Oh, Kendra Friedman's here.
Perfect.
Excellent. Welcome, quorum. I mean, Kendra. Glad you could join us.
Okay, I believe we have a quorum then.
All right. Seriously, Kendra, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate that. And for accomplishing quorum. That's fantastic. Let me move on. I think for the agenda changes and announcements. Are there any agenda changes, comments, questions?
No, we have no agenda item changes.
Great. So we will then move on to our executive director announcements. Always so nice to have Erin with us. I think she has a few words for the committee.
I do. Thank you, Chair Tucker. I wanted to provide an update on a couple of things that we've been working on here. First, our regional economy initiative with our county board chairs, give you a little bit of oversight. I know you'll hear more today about our ADA program, and then just introduce the item of our strategic direction that you will be discussing here today. So on Friday, our county board chairs, we convene them quarterly. The leaders from our 7 counties, along with the city of Chicago, and in partnership with World Business Chicago, also invited to the event were our county economic development organizations. We discussed principles around regional cooperation and getting to consensus on these principles of regional cooperation on economic competitiveness. CMAP set this work in motion 2 years ago at the request of Cook County President Tony Preckwinkle and the county board chairs and the deputy mayor of Chicago. The work was supported by a grant from the Searle Funds at the Chicago Community Trust. And we partnered with the Brookings Institution, a nonprofit public policy organization known for their high quality independent research and innovative policy solutions around the nation and the world. County and city leaders and other stakeholders talked about the Brookings work and recommendations and prioritized activities at Friday's meeting in Joliet, including some of the immediate next steps to finalize and launch a joint effort. Among the recommendations are coordinating international economic engagement and creating a global identity for the region, expanding city-centric entrepreneurship supports region-wide with a focus on underrepresented entrepreneurs, and establishing shared capacity for data and research and economic development, among other activities. Northeastern Illinois really is a center for international business. We have lots of assets here, but the region continues to face persistent challenges like slow economic progress and stagnant population growth. Brookings and our local leaders have drawn on best practices to develop a shared regional framework for equitable economic development. So this initiative builds on a number of projects that we've worked on over the years, including the Chicago Metro Metals Consortium, the Southland Development Authority, and when I say we, I mean our regional stakeholders and many of you here, and efforts of our municipal and county economic development officials. So this partnership, we believe, is just a tremendous regional accomplishment. Next steps will include formalizing agreements among the various agencies to operationalize the initiative's principles, objectives, and strategies. We hope to have a more formal announcement here in the coming months. And I don't believe Mike Myers, is Mike Myers from World Business on? I just wanted to say thank you to World Business Chicago and their team for really leading the charge here and being willing to take on efforts that are broader than traditionally have been in their purview. I also would love to thank our team, Austin Edwards and Elizabeth Ginsburg, who have also been working staunchly behind the scenes to carry these folks over the finish line. So we really appreciate their efforts as well. On the ADA topic, continuing on the theme of regional collaboration and partnership, we're ramping up our efforts to help communities address Americans with Disabilities Act transition plans, which is a federal requirement that the region is currently not meeting. On our agenda today, we'll provide an update on this important work. Transportation is a literal route to opportunity. It connects residents to jobs, to education, to services, but people with disabilities face barriers in moving around our region. Past CMAP research has shown that 1 in 5 residents with disabilities did not travel on an average day, compared to fewer than 1 in 10 for other residents. Our communities and our region cannot achieve a robust and inclusive economic growth and a transportation system that works for everyone if we don't address accessibility accessibility in our transportation and infrastructure planning investments. Also a nod here, I know Kendra joined, the work that the Metropolitan Planning Council did to help us sort of shed the light on the fact that many of our communities were not in compliance was really critical to us taking on this charge here. I encourage you to visit our newly launched ADA webpage on the CMAP website that has information on that every community should know about improving accessibility. On our strategic direction, as you all know, we restructured our committees earlier this year to provide strategic alignment between our working committees and CMAP strategic direction, which provides a framework to focus and strengthen our efforts to advance the goals of 2050. Since implementing this change and hearing from you all and others over the past several months, we've continued to refine the approaches and objectives of the regional economy focus area in the strategic direction. You'll get an update on that today. And in closing, just to go back to the meeting last week with our partners and stakeholders on regional economic collaboration, you could really feel the energy and excitement and optimism in the room. We really are hopefully at a turning point here for our region. I think just tremendous funding opportunities with the infrastructure bill and this commitment to work together really recognizes the fact that we are stronger when we do work together. I want to thank each of you for your commitment to improving our region through the work that you all do every day. And we look forward to continuing to partner with you on our region's shared goals and objectives. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Wow. Excellent stuff, Erin. Thank you. Are there any questions from committee members? All right. Hearing none, let's move on to the next item, which is, of course, approval of the minutes. A copy of the minutes were included in the meeting packet. Are there any requested changes, corrections to those minutes? Okay. Hearing none, can I get a motion and a second to approve the minutes, please?
I'd like to motion to accept the draft meeting minutes for May 23rd, 2022.
A motion from Kim. Thank you, Kim. Do we have a second?
Second.
I think John got that in just before Shannon. John, you win. Thank you. Any other questions? Any comments? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Unfortunately, Chair, we have to do it by roll call since we
Oh,
are.
my apologies. I'll let you do that. Go ahead.
That's okay. If the committee members could please unmute themselves at this time, I'll run through the list quickly. Bob Tucker,
Aye.
Kim Porter,
Aye.
Adam Ballard is not here today. Dion Bo,
Aye.
thank you. Peter Kritikos,
Aye.
Christy De Laurentiis,
Aye, sorry.
thank you. Kendra Freeman,
Aye.
thank you. John Furr,
Aye.
Veronica Gonzalez. Shannon McGee,
Aye.
thank you. Josh Potter,
Aye.
thank you. Obaye Reed,
Aye.
and Tara Orban, is it ex officio.
I am, yeah, non-voting.
Thank you. Did I miss any committee members? No, the motion passes. Back to you, Chair.
Great, thank you for that, Austin. We are going to move on to the next agenda item, and I'm sorry, I'm pulling up the agenda. My screen's acting up on me. Help me out here, Austin. What's next?
Sure, it's an update from Alex Ensign from our team to discuss the strategic direction and their progress on it.
Well, let's turn it over to Alex, and thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. This is actually going to be a fairly quick update, but I just wanted to keep everyone in the loop because I think, just started when we were having our last meeting and was still actually getting kind of, well acquainted with the strategic direction. So now I've been at CMAP a total of 6 months. I know it perfectly and can give you a better update on our progress. So over the summer, hearing, I think, a lot of the feedback from the committee members and from some of our staff that there was some room to kind of further refine the strategic direction and also make sure that all of our staff were connecting it to their work. We held a series of 10 workshops over the summer. These were workshops where all CMAP staff were able to attend, build workshops with every single division of the agency, mostly to make sure that everyone was really very clearly aware of what's in the strategic direction and had an opportunity to provide feedback where possible. So through those workshops, we've collected a lot of feedback. We've compiled that feedback with the really critical feedback we got from all of our committee meetings in the spring. And I'm happy to say that we're hard at work on refining this draft and presenting an actual draft Word document to the committees. Our hope is that we can share this draft with the committees in November and then present it to the board of directors at their January meeting to be kind of officially adopted. I will say that of all of these workshops, we held some specifically to take a deeper dive into areas where we called them cross-focus area sessions. We wanted to make sure we were really identifying strategies that get at the intersection between, for example, economy and transportation, and then climate and transportation. But we did workshops at the intersection of each of those focus areas. My hope is that we can make sure the strategic direction is not only guiding our work within each of these focus areas, but also figuring out exactly how we want to intersect so that when we're working on climate initiatives or transportation initiatives, nothing's working at kind of cross purposes with each other, and we're just really strongly aligning everything together. So we have lots of feedback to go through, and we're working with a smaller core team to update and expand some of the narrative in the strategic direction, which we will be, with all luck in our favor, presenting to the Economy Committee and the Climate Committee and the Transportation Committee at our meetings later this season. And that's the end of my update. Are there any questions?
Sounds like you're going to be busy, Alex. Thank you for that. That was absolutely great. Yes, any questions from any of our committee members? No? Okay, well, let's move on then to the next item. Thanks again, Alex. We're going to have a state and federal legislative agenda update.
Right. Thanks very much. Good morning. Tim and Kasha will go into the details on the state and federal agendas. They are currently in draft form, pretty close to being fully developed. We're still seeking comments, but I think we're in pretty good shape. Our federal agenda will focus on the funding and implementation of all the opportunities coming out of the IIJA. And our state agenda will focus on increasing capacity for CMAP and the other MPOs around the state so that we can take advantage of all the opportunities coming out of the IIJA. Furthermore, we currently are limited in what we can address by the Regional Planning Act. So we'll be seeking to amend the Regional Planning Act to seek an appropriation for us to be able to address all the issues enumerated in that act, and we are charged with addressing by the Regional Planning Act, but for which we have limited funds. So that'll be the focus of our federal and state agendas, and Tim and Kasha will go into the details. Tim, Kasha.
Great. Yeah, thank you, John. Hi, everybody. My name is Tim McMahon. I am a senior on our intergovernmental affairs team, and I focus on our federal legislative affairs. So next slide, if you could. Thank you very much. So beginning with the transportation section, obviously our primary focus this year is the successful implementation of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So that includes increasing local access to funding programs that were authorized but haven't yet been funded, such as the Healthy Streets Program for resilient infrastructure investment, and the Active Transportation Infrastructure Program for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. Both of these programs were going to be big resources for regions, for communities within our region. And so we want to make sure that those get funded. So we're going to stay on our congressional and federal partners on that. It also includes increasing local access to federal safety formula funds so that MPOs like CMAP have funding to meet federal safety performance management goals and targets that we're charged with setting. And then that last section in the transportation area has been a long-standing recommendation across all levels of government, which is sustainably funding the transportation system. That includes development of new funding mechanisms or pilots nationally, such as a road usage charge pilot. So now on to the climate section recommendations that are primarily focused on reducing emissions and enhancing the resilience of the region. The first section is primarily focusing on strengthening federal standards, so emission standards, as well as strengthening support to the transit system, which received historic bipartisan levels of operating support during the pandemic and will continue to need that support as ridership rebounds in the coming years, especially for a region like ours, compared to other regions across the country that has such a large transit system and is a legacy rail system. The next section captures our resilience recommendations, including ensuring a region-wide resilience plan that we're working on as an agency, that once that's developed, it can be used to increase the federal share of some resilience funds for both formula and competitive funds. The last category of recommendations there focuses on regional economic competitiveness, and really one that we want to focus and make sure we get your feedback on today. And so beginning with the first section on supporting the flow of or inclusive economic growth. This is during the pandemic, the Economic Development Administration received historic levels of funding for regional investment programs, as I'm sure you all know. This included the Build Back Better Challenge. It included different workforce challenges, and these were very popular. They were regional in focus, which we love to see, and very oversubscribed. And so we want to see those continued in the long term. And the way EDA is set up for regional programs like that is something we just want to see more. The next section is another longstanding one we've had, which is to increase comprehensive support for investment decisions at the intersection of housing, economic development, and transportation. Specifically, regions would like to see more comprehensive support and technical assistance, not only from U.S. Department of Transportation, but also, HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Administration, as well as the Economic Development Administration. And then last one there is to increase support for communities to mitigate against the impacts of increased freight movement, including more transparent and regularly updated information on grade crossing delays and environmental impacts, right? And a prioritization within new programs like the Railroad Crossing Elimination Program or any other, rail crossing program to focus on communities that will see increased delays and congestion due to that freight traffic. So with that, I will turn it over to Kasha, and we'll both be here for questions at the end. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Tim. For those of you who I haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Kasha Hart, and I'm also an Intergovernmental Affairs Senior with our Leg Affairs team. So the draft state agenda is broken out into the same categories as our federal agenda. We're really intending to align with our strategic direction, and a number of the subcategories are also pretty similar as well. So beginning with transportation, transportation funding and finance reform has been a long-standing priority of CMAPs, and the report that we've been tasked to do by the General Assembly in coordination with the RTA on the future of transit funding is going to continue to inform how the recommendations in this area are continually refined over time. We also know there's a lot to be done to make our streets safer for all roadway users, and as CMAP continues to grow our Safe and Complete Streets body of work, you'll see in our agenda we have more items related to promoting traffic safety and improving access to safe walking and cycling infrastructure. And then finally, transportation, innovation, and transparency have also, consistently been part of our agendas, which is particularly important given our role as a data hub for the region. And this year, we're really thinking about this through the lens of federal funding and instituting performance-based planning and project selection measures for IIJA-funded investments. So moving on to our climate priorities now. So not only has integrated water resources management been a key part of CMAP's advocacy agenda for some time, but this is really an issue that touches every community in our region, whether it's flooding, water quality issues, water supply, some combination. This is also a space where there are a number of regional solutions that we can pursue, and a lack of investment can yield significant health and economic impacts. And then finally, we've included a section on reducing transportation emissions, and this discusses new federal requirements around measuring on-road GHG emissions and thinking about how we can be strategic in developing a parallel process at the state level. This is also about ensuring successful implementation of CEJA and making sure local governments are supported in their role to reduce emissions and build a clean energy workforce. And then finally, certainly not last but not least, our regional economic competitiveness section. So as with all of our recommendations, we're really looking to onto 2050 and the plan update to sort of guide what is in our legislative agenda. This section in particular also looks to previous CMAP research in order to inform what is on our advocacy agenda this session. So for example, CMAP's local development incentives report included a number of recommendations on how to improve access to development incentive data. That's an important first step in ensuring we can assess the impact of these programs in our region. And then we've also included a couple of recommendations from our fees, fines, and fares report, as they are complementary to some of the Safe and Complete Streets policy priorities included in the transportation section around promoting traffic safety. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to John to talk about our next steps. Oh, John, I think you're on mute.
Got it. Thanks, Kasha. We've met with numerous committees throughout CMAP, throughout the entire agency. We've met with our various divisions. We presented to the Council of Mayors, the Transportation Committee, Climate Committee, and now the Regional Economy Committee. We'll be presenting an update to our board in November and for comment, and we'll be seeking approval for the legislative agendas for both the state and federal combined in January. This is a document which is constantly being addressed, changed, and to the extent there are any comments that this committee has, we are certainly happy to entertain those comments. We've looked for suggestions and comments as we move towards adoption sometime in January. So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's our report.
Wow, thank you for all three of you reporting on this. Questions for any of these folks? Okay. Well, hearing none, I think we have one more discussion update item, and that's going to be, as alluded to earlier, the improving accessibility and ADA compliance item. Linda?
Austin, do you have the slides?
Yes, Dominic is sharing them now.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. And for those of you who I haven't yet met, my name is Linda Mastandria, and I am the director for CMAP's Regional ADA and Local Safety Planning. And today I'm going to take a few minutes to share with you some updates and information on what CMAP is doing to make it better for people with disabilities across the region. Next slide, please. So I'm going to take us through a brief roadmap. We're going to talk about where we are today, what's required under the ADA, what all of it really means, what we can do, and how we can make it better together. Next slide, please. So we'll start with where we are today. Next slide. So in order to improve accessibility across the region, one of the things we need to know is where we're starting from, right? So where the sidewalk ends, a report that was jointly created from the Metropolitan Planning Council and the Great Lakes ADA Center is really providing us a great start in doing just that. It gave us a snapshot of a moment in time of where accessibility in the region stood. And the bottom line is really this. At the time of this study, of the over 280 some communities in Northeastern Illinois, about 10% had the required self-evaluations and ADA transition plans in place. So what that means for us really is that there's a lot of room to improve. There's certainly some work to do, but it gives us the opportunity to come together to talk about what we can do to improve accessibility and integration for people with disabilities, their families and friends and colleagues across the region. Next slide, please. And for those of you who don't know, some of you may not know, and for others of you, this is a refresher. The ADA was signed into law in 1990. And it provides very broad protections for people with disabilities against discrimination in employment, state and local government programs and services, public accommodations, telecommunications, and other areas. And the premise of the law is really this. It's very simple. It's that integration benefits not only people with disabilities, but society as a whole. It means that including people with disabilities into the fabric of our communities makes us stronger, more resilient, and better off economically. And we learn that in providing programs and services for people with disabilities, we all benefit. For example, curb cuts, they're not used just by people with disabilities, but they're used by parents pushing strollers, people wheeling luggage and carts, things like that. Think about captions on television. They were originally intended for people who are deaf or hard of hearing to provide access to communication, but now people use them all the time in bars and noisy environments to follow along on the TV screens. So today we're going to focus on the state and local government portion, or Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, talk about some of those requirements and how we can work together to meet those requirements and improve accessibility across the region. Next slide, please. So when we talk about public entities are really all the programs and services of state and local government entities, right? Things like our city halls, our courthouses, police, fire, EMS, park district programs, where you go to pay fines, register a business, get a tag for your dog, transit stops and stations, parking lots, street parking, sidewalks, curb cuts, all of these things. And no matter how many of these programs or services or facilities an entity has, all public entities, regardless of size, have to do a couple of things. Conduct a self-evaluation and provide public notice about the ADA and its requirements. Next slide. For those public entities that have 50 or more employees, there's a couple of additional requirements. They have to designate an employee to oversee Title II compliance, or which may be commonly known as an ADA coordinator. This person may have solely that responsibility, or that may be an additional title added on to some existing responsibilities. They also have to establish a grievance procedure. And this is important because it allows for a mechanism for people who believe they've been discriminated against based on their disability to file a complaint and to have that complaint addressed. And finally, they have to develop and implement a transition plan. But I'd like to rewind us just for a second and talk about the requirements of the self-evaluations that I mentioned are required of all public entities. So self-evaluation, go back up, thanks. A self-evaluation is an assessment of a public entity's programs, services, and physical facilities. It's an identification of barriers preventing the full participation of people with disabilities in those programs, services, and facilities. The transition plan takes the next step. It takes all that information from the self-evaluation and creates a roadmap that not only addresses compliance with the law, but integrating and including people with disabilities. And so this requires that public entity to develop a plan to address these barriers. It must include a couple of things: a timeline, a budget, of course, and the person or people that will be responsible for implementation of that plan. Next slide, please. So now we've talked a little bit about the requirements of the ADA, the self-evaluations and transition plans, and the role of the ADA coordinator. So let's take the next step and talk about what it all means and why we should care. Next slide, please. So by US Census and American Community Survey estimates, there's somewhere around 61 million Americans living with a disability today, give or take. And contrary to the popular belief that people with disabilities largely exist on government benefits, live in subsidized housing, and have no disposable income, studies of the worldwide purchasing power of people with disabilities tell us quite a different story. They tell us that there's a collective $8 trillion worth of purchasing power across the globe in people with disabilities. And in the United States alone, people with disabilities have more than $490 billion in disposable income. And so I imagine that communities that are building, rebuilding, looking to grow their economies, expand their tax base, might want to tap into the power of these dollars and that this community has. And the idea here is really what I've alluded to previously. By including and integrating people with disabilities into our communities, we're becoming more equitable. We're providing people with disabilities opportunity to live, to work, to play in our communities. And as a result, becoming part of that economic engine that drives long-term improvement in economic growth. And so now we understand a little bit about what it all means. So let's talk about what we can do. Next slide. So let's take a few minutes to talk about not only what CMAP can do, but what we as individuals, as government entities and officials, as advocates can do to move the needle on integrating people with disabilities into our communities. And I know it can be somewhat overwhelming and you don't know where to start or what to do, but it really doesn't have to be. So let's just take a couple of minutes and we'll talk about some of the ways CMAP is working and going to work with all of you, our communities across the region, to improve accessibility, to integrate people with disabilities, and to improve our economies too. Next slide, please. So what we are working on at CMAP right now is creating a multifaceted program to meet all of you where you are. You know, we have to start at the beginning, right? We are all in our own unique journey when it comes to making our communities accessible. It's not one size fits all. We're all different. And so the program we provide can't be one size fits all either. So we're developing and providing education and training for public entities, for advocates and allies, to not only give you a grounding in the requirements of the law, but the reasons behind it and how to successfully implement those requirements, the key piece. We'll be engaging in outreach to and with all of you, public entities across the region, disability stakeholder organizations, allied organizations, and others, to inspire, to educate, to inform, and to bring everyone along on this important journey. We'll provide real-time, on-demand technical assistance to our municipalities to guide them along this journey as well. We're developing a toolbox of resources templates, checklists, and other materials. You heard about our new webpage, and you'll find all of this as we develop it on that webpage to aid all of our communities in their completion of self-evaluations and transition plans, and including and integrating people with disabilities in our communities. And as you engage in your self-evaluations and transition planning processes, you'll learn how it all ties together. You'll see that improving access to transportation and building transit-oriented communities makes things more accessible for people with disabilities, but benefits everyone along the way. If people, including people with disabilities, can't get to a place, they can't live there, they can't work there, they can't play there, they can't spend their money there, right? So that's the key, getting them to the place. So connecting transit to affordable housing, the next piece of the puzzle. This creates opportunity for people with disabilities, and again, others, to get to work, to live in a safe, affordable, accessible place, to get to work without spending a whole day trying to get there. And when companies invest in accessibility, people take notice. Market studies show that people are more likely to buy from companies that are inclusive and integrated, that feature people with disabilities in their advertising and marketing materials, and that have products and services aimed at people with disabilities. And this is true whether those customers have a family member with a disability or not. So it's a win-win for all of us. So taking the time to invest in self-evaluations and creating these transition plans will have far-reaching benefits for your community and for you for years to come. Next slide, please. So let's talk about what we can all do together. Next slide. So as the MPO for the region, as we've mentioned, CMAP needs to make sure that our municipalities receiving transportation funds are complying with their ADA obligations. And while we're taking the lead on developing the training and the outreach and tools and resources and the technical assistance to make it easier for all of you, we recognize that none of us can do this alone, and that it is a monumental effort, and that it takes more than just one organization or one person to make this happen, especially in a region of our size. So it really takes all of us, public entities and officials, disability stakeholders, the broader community, CMAP, working together on developing and implementing all of these tools and practices and really philosophies about including and integrating people with disabilities in our community. But I am 100% confident that we can do it together, and that we're going to build the most accessible, inclusive region where people with and without disabilities can live and work and play together. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Great and important work. Do we have questions from committee members for Linda?
This is Tara Orban from Cook County. Linda, thank you so much for a very informative presentation. I really enjoyed it. And I just kind of want to build on to, some of the things that you were talking about. When we talk about like a self-evaluation, those are things, like you said, the ADA curb ramps that are used with, by people of all ages and abilities, right? So the components of the ADA transition plan they take resources and technical expertise, which CMAP is providing for many of these resource constrained communities. So as an example, just in Cook County, we have jurisdiction over just less than 5% of the roadways in Cook County. And as part of our self-evaluation, we had over 9,000 ADA curb ramps, over 4,000 crosswalks, and so it becomes daunting. There is a lot of material that, it sounds on the surface, real simple, but there's an immense amount of data that has to be, collected, and to be able to do it efficiently and effectively. I really applaud CMAP for providing these resources that are so badly needed. It improves access to transit and, as you pointed out, the connections with the economy. I just want to thank CMAP for, providing this as a resource for these communities.
Incredibly well said, Tara. Thank you for that. I see Christy De Laurentiis has a question.
Sort of want to piggyback on those comments, because there are so many communities that need assistance. I wanted just to get a sense of, has CMAP identified how many communities you're going to be doing hands-on technical assistance with, or how is that going to roll out over, and what's sort of the time frame?
Sorry, I was talking while muted. So the initial project is a 3-year commitment. It's going to take longer than that, obviously. So, but we are looking to provide this assistance in a variety of ways, identifying the most resource-constrained communities, obviously, including assistance in doing self-evaluations and transition plans in our call for projects or for technical assistance, and then, you know, again, providing that sort of range of assistance and materials. So for those communities that maybe just need a template, right? They just really kind of want that formula to work off of, all the way to the communities that really need full-on assistance. So I will say that we're still developing all of that. I've been on board for just about 5 months, so we're really still in the ramping up stage and starting to identify communities. We've reached out to all of the communities across the region to see where they are in process. And that's helping us kind of lay the groundwork for where we'll target our efforts. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
5 months. Why isn't it all done yet? Great.
I wish.
Any other questions for Linda? All right. Hearing none, let's move on to what I think is always fun, the other business section of our program. We had more than a few folks who want to give some updates on what they're doing, and I'm going to read them, I think, in the order that we got them. So, Obai Reed, can we start with you, sir?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Obai Reed. I am the founding president and CEO of the Equity Movement. I want to share a brief update about the Go Hub. I believe at our first meeting or one of our early meetings of the committee, I shared an update, and a lot has happened since then. So you all may recall the Go Hub is a community mobility center. It's modeled after traditional mobility hubs and then reimagined, considering our audience is Black and Brown people living in a low to moderate income neighborhood and experiencing severe transportation inequities. So given that audience, our model brings 3 integrated elements together: hardware, software, and a physical building. The hardware includes mobility devices, shared electric vehicles, shared e-bikes, shared e-scooters, and recently we've added autonomous vehicles to that mix of hardware. We also consider the hardware transit infrastructure and streetscape infrastructure. The software includes the work to socialize people around mobility, such as community mobility rituals and hyperlocal advocacy coalition classes and trainings, and the work to address trauma and reduce violence at the neighborhood level, which leads us to the 3rd component of physical building. The traditional mobility hub model sits the shared mobility devices all outside. There's not normally any staffing associated with those devices sitting outside. So for our model, we felt like a building was critical because we did not see the potential to really move people in our neighborhoods, to grow their mobility, have an impact on addressing trauma and doing the work to reduce violence without a safe, protective space for people to come in, establish relationships, and feel comfortable, in some cases discussing some challenging topics that exist in our neighborhoods. So those 3 elements are part and parcel of our work. Again, hardware, software, and a physical building. As of ago, we had to do a quick pivot. Our intent was to move forward with a property where we have site control in North Lawndale and use that property as the home of the Go Hub and apply for 2 major grants, one from the city, the universal application through the Department of Planning, which would allow us to access funds through TIF, Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, the Chicago Community Recovery Grant, and a couple of other grant programs. And the other large grant program that we were interested in was the United States Department of Energy grant focused on using technologies to grow mobility. So at the last minute before the city grant was due, we had a challenge with our developer partner and could not move forward with the city grant. We had a few weeks to apply for the USDOE grant, so we quickly pivoted to a new site in Brownsville. We will be working in partnership with Urban Juncture at their campus on 51st and Calumet. And that is now the site location that we're going with for the USDOE grant. We did submit a LOI. We should learn within a matter of weeks, are we able to go to the next phase and submit a full application. While we pivoted to Brownsville, especially for the USDOE funding opportunity, it does not change our commitment to bringing the Go Hub to North Lawndale on the west side. We are working with, we've talked with the Illinois Facilities Fund, and we're hoping to establish a formal partnership with them to help us think through how we find an appropriate property in North Lawndale. And I'm also excited to say and mention that we are working closely with CMAP. We met recently with Michael, Lindsay, and Asha at CMAP, and we're excited to have CMAP support as we move forward on this project. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions or share any additional context which may be helpful.
You sound very busy. I see a hand up on a 515 telephone call. And is there a question? Or any other questions? Okay then. Hey, thank you very much for that report. Let's move on.
Bob.
Thank you. I think Marissa has an update on the Good Jobs Challenge for us. Marissa?
Unfortunately, I don't believe Marissa was able to join, but I'm sure she was hoping to give more information about the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership successful application to the Good Jobs Challenge. And we'll try to share some of that information out after the meeting.
Thank you, Austin. Appreciate that. Shannon from MHub, are you with us?
I am. Hi, everybody. Thank you for this awesome meeting and for that update, Obai. Hi, everybody. I'm Shannon McGee. I'm the Director of Community Impact and Engagement at MHub. I lead our focus on driving equitable access to entrepreneurship and manufacturing. So just a quick update from our end. We have a couple of new exciting initiatives launching. Over the past year and a half, we've been really focused at looking at our existing programming and identifying where we can make it more inclusive and equitable, and also looking to resource a 5-year initiative to drive resources and programming to help Black and Brown founders and women founders take idea to proof of concept to commercializable product. So a couple of exciting things that are happening right now and into 2023. We are finishing up the design and build of a digital learning management platform that institutionalizes our entrepreneurial curriculum in partnership with 1871 and Matter. It'll launch in March, but we're looking for feedback from regional players in economic development and technical assistance providers for small businesses over the next couple of months. That'll really power some of our work to sub-grant and deploy collaborative programming in disinvested communities. And so anybody on the line, if you are interested in testing with us and giving us feedback as we work to launch this in March, I would love to hear your thoughts. So that's one. Another one is that we have just received funding to launch collaborative programming with community-based economic development organizations and small business development centers in communities on the south and west sides of the city. We'll be launching or releasing an RFP in the coming months. So look out for that. I'm sure that you'll hear from me one-on-one and look at our channels as well. And then the last is that we have developed and piloted a program to take idea to proof of concept for Black founders, Brown founders, and women founders. And we will be launching the full scale of that program in January. It'll apply stipends to participate as well as micro grants. So look out for that as well, and looking to partner with everybody on this line to make sure that we deploy impactful programs and look to identify where we can partner with you in your existing programming.
Wow, you are awesome, Shannon. Thank you. Any questions for Shannon? Okay, I know there'll be more to come.
Thanks, everybody.
Peter, I understand you brought some maps with you today, and map is in our name. So what do you have for us?
Sure. Dominic, can you share the maps? So as Dominic is preparing this, oops.
Yep, we got the maps.
Here we go. So as Dominic, well, Dominic, so a little background. Need to back up one. There we go. Nope. One more. Keep going backwards. There we go. Oh, geez. I thought I gave him. Okay, so there's a Cook County.
Do I need to go back, sir?
Yeah, go back to zero. Go back to the first one.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
So as part of some work that I started last year, what we've been doing is we got interested in the idea about with the question as to whether women are distributed evenly across the city and Cook County. And so what we started to do, we first mapped people over 18, started to see where women were majorities in that, and then kept whittling it down to 18 to 69 in terms of working age women. And now most recently, we've mapped out where women are female, where they are the heads of households, family heads of households in Chicago and Cook County. So Cook is on the left and Chicago's on the right. And what we see is a pattern, and this is all track level data, what we see as a pattern is that there are large areas across the west side and the south side where you see, and then going into the suburbs on both areas, where you see that women are the majority and significant majorities of the very darkest areas are 75% or greater of where you have family heads of households where they are the majority of family heads of households. If you have any sense about the racial and demographic, racial and income distributions around Chicago and Cook, these are also areas that are predominantly Black majority, as well as low income. Why don't you flip to the next slide? So then we started to look at at several things. First of all, what are the services that are available to women in these neighborhoods? And this map and the next two will start to show that where the distributions of these services are. These are density maps on the right, and where women are, and the reference map of where women are majorities. And what you'll see in this map, these are pharmacies. Pharmacies are concentrated particularly along the north end, and scarcely in terms of densities on the west and south sides, where you see, again, women as the majority family heads of households. Next one. These are grocery stores. We talk of food deserts. Here we just map the grocery stores. Same pattern. The services exist where the women aren't. Next. And this is banking. And again, similar pattern. Now, we had to break this up because of the way downtown overwhelms everything else. And so in terms of relative densities, you wouldn't have picked up the others in the process. But, if you think back about where the women are located, so for instance, right over the label West Side is the Austin community, heavily women, and virtually no, relatively speaking, very, very few bank services. Next one. Then we started thinking, okay, well, what's another characteristic of neighborhoods in Chicago, and that's the existence of brownfields. And the brownfield maps were developed by a grad student at Northeastern Illinois University, Phoebe Lynn, who very kindly let us use her brownfield maps. And again, we look at this in terms of where women are and where brownfields are. And unfortunately, unlike the other maps, the brownfields and women overlap quite a bit. Excuse me a second. My brother-in-law from Alaska is just taking off, so sorry about that, folks. What basically is emerging for us is there are a couple of things from the standpoint of economic development and allocation of resources. One is that we know from other studies that women, particularly women who are heads of households, rely on the existence of services that are close to where they are. The mobility patterns and so forth are such that they have to be close in order to be able to, take care of kids, do the family shopping, take care of other responsibilities, and work. And so one of the questions we haven't looked at is in terms of, where people originate their work commute and where they end up. That's another phase that we're looking at. But just in terms of basic services, it's important that that women have access to these services that are close by. Second, like I said, we need to look at jobs and where there are real opportunities for career advancement. Future maps will also be looking at, although I can eyeball this, doing strong correlations in terms of income, wealth, housing, and other economic characteristics. And again, in terms of what their availability is with respect to women. And then the fourth is to the extent that we know where women are concentrated, and we can make some good educated guesses about the construction of services and other sorts of things that are necessary to support their needs. Do these present opportunities? And from an economic development standpoint, from a transportation and resource allocation standpoint, the idea of sort of marrying where we potentially can see some real demands and opportunities for entrepreneurship, new business activities, and so forth, and how these can relate, that's something that we're going to examine. The one other map I want to show you, and this is in part, this is sort of like another phase of what we're looking at, is the next map. And that, oh, I'm sorry, I should have done this before. This one is on digital divide. And by the way, the same pattern, so the areas that are less colored are the ones that have strong digital resources, and the darker colors are ones where you have the greatest digital divide. And these are data from Purdue University. And so one of the strategies that people have talked about is, for instance, in terms of employment, is remote work. Well, if you look at this pattern and you think back about the pattern in terms of women are heads of households are most concentrated, women heads of households are most concentrated in areas that have the greatest digital divide. And this is both in terms of infrastructure as well as other socioeconomic indicators. So even if you think that, well, maybe we can fill the gap in terms of employment and some services with respect to women, where we know there are high concentrations of women-headed family households, then these are areas that are underserved in terms of digital resources. This becomes important with the next slide too. This slide shows the distribution of people with population of people with disabilities. And these are all disabilities. We have another map that we've looked at with respect to ambulatory or mobility disabilities, the same pattern. So there again, these are underserved in terms of the basic services that we've looked at already. These are areas where we find higher concentrations of brownfields. And again, if we're thinking about access to employment, particularly with people with mobility disabilities, these are the areas that are least served in terms of digital resources, or another way to put it, where the digital divide exists the most. So, as far as we know, this work has been, especially with respect to women, we don't have other examples of this. We did a blog for the OECD, and I've just typed in the link to that covers some of this. So if you wish to look at it further, and our co-author on that is Evan Breedlove, who's a geographer who graduated out of DePaul, and is now doing some graduate work out of University College in Dublin. And the other two who participated in this are Daryl Dukes and Pauline Hong. So happy to take any questions. I ran through this pretty quickly.
Well, thank you, Peter. And those maps are very telling. Any questions for Peter or his brother-in-law?
This is Tara from Cook County. Really enjoyed your presentation, Peter. I think it really underscores the importance of, what this committee and, even the legislative agenda that was put forth and everything. How do we be intentional about closing these gaps that you're highlighting in terms of providing investments, resources, or, additional opportunities? And this, these, images that you're showing, shine a light on some of those gaps. So thank you. It was very informative. And I clicked on the link and plan on digging in some more.
Thank you for that, Tara. Any other questions or comments for Peter? Okay, hearing none. Austin or Dominic, do we know if Kevin was able to join us? I don't see everybody on my screen.
I don't believe so.
Okay, maybe next time Kevin can give us an update. I think this brings us to one of our final items, which is public comment. Staff will read any public comments received prior to today's meeting and recognize anyone else who wants to speak. Does anyone else want to speak?
Yes, Austin, this is Garland Armstrong calling from Des Moines, Iowa. How you doing?
Good, Garland. How are you? It's always great to hear from you.
Yeah, it's always good to hear from you, Garland. What's up?
All right. I just would like to compliment Ojai about the one in North Lawndale, what he's doing, because I know he's trying his best to get it, since there's a barrier trying to get through all of what he's trying, so he can make sure North Lawndale will have a good permanent property. And I'm also complimenting Peter to especially where the areas are for people with disabilities where they're trying to be successful, but like we said, it's always a big barrier problem. And also we got some men who's also in those communities too, who are also disabled too, needs to be a part of it too, but there's always a barrier because sometimes it's not like working together equally. So we have like we said, we have an income disparity, especially when you have married couple who are disabled too. They just feel like they're out of touch. So we need to work on how to get that together, whether you're married or not, especially with your disability. It is still part of society, and they just figured that it can't do it. Like either us want to be dead or be in a group home or nursing home. So it's always a good idea to work on that. So how we can get it up and running. So our friends in the Chicagoland area for the ADA to make sure that we are definitely part of it, and also making sure that everyone on the South Side too gets the same thing too. So in the Chicago area, so including the suburbs. So we need to make sure how to work on that and what kind of great programs they have for people with disabilities when it comes in the pipeline, so we can get it going, and even from all walks of life, even in different languages, and visually impaired people too, because we need to work on especially people who are culturally disabled and need to understand in their language, like, for those who cannot speak English, how to interpret them in their languages too, so that they'll understand it while they're disabled. So we need to work on everything about that. And I know CMAP and everybody's doing a great job. So make sure to keep it going. And I'll be glad to answer any comments or questions you have from the committees.
Thank you always for your comments and terrific insight. Always good to hear your voice, and thanks for holding down the Iowa branch of CMAP. Any questions on that?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Obai Garland. Thank you for your kind words. It's always a pleasure to have your voice here and have your support of the work we're doing. So thank you, and keep rocking. Really appreciate you, Garland.
Amen to that.
Thanks. And thanks. And also too, Heather says hello to you. We're here, and she had an eye doctor's appointment and they gave her a shot in the right eye. So we just finished that, and we're heading back on home on the east side of Des Moines, Iowa, since we live on the east side of it right here. And also glad to tell you that since I'm still on the CMAP advisory board, and also I'll be doing it on the third Wednesdays. And one day when I speak to you again, I'll tell you what they have up for grabs for the CMAP advisory board. And they start here at 12 noon and they finish no later than 2 o'clock right here. So I'll keep you posted on it, what we got here so far coming along, and I'll share it with all of y'all.
Please do, and please pass along our best to Heather. Any other public comments, or Austin, did we have anything in advance?
We have not received anything by email or in the chat, so I don't believe there's anyone else wishing to address the committee today.
All right, well, fair enough. Then I would simply note that our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 21st. I withdraw my earlier comment that there will be snow on the ground by that point. There will not be snow on the ground by November 21st, I assure you. Anything else we need to address? Dominic, Austin?
I don't believe so, Chair.
Great. Thank you again to both of you and to the entire staff at CMAP for your tremendous work. With that, may I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved, De Laurentiis.
Thank you, Chrissy. Is there a second?
I'll second. Kim Porter.
Thank you, Kim. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We will see you all very soon. Be well, stay safe.
Thank you, Chair.